What's going on, Cosmic Crew? Thanks for stopping by the channel today. We have news for an opening scene report for Avengers Doomsday, an opening scene that I think would make a lot of sense. But on top of that, we've also been getting a lot of leaked photos for Avengers Doomsday that show us Doom and Steve Rogers and kind of really everybody that's been confirmed so far. But speaking of those who aren't confirmed so far, we do have a new report about Avengers Doomsday production resuming specifically for a few people, a handful of people who have not been confirmed yet, who don't have chairs, but we know are most likely going to be in the movie. So a lot to break down today. And if you're trying to keep up with Marvel and Avengers Doomsday in 2026, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. So the first thing we're going to go over today is the opening scene report. And I find this very interesting because we've talked about this plenty of times on the channel and on our podcast and in our lives. We've talked about this a lot, but the title of this headline coming from Max Blizz is Avengers Doomsday opening scene is reportedly where the worlds of Deadpool, Wolverine, and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man collide. Now, the actual report is coming from the recent insider Majestic. Now, take this with a grain of salt because we obviously can't confirm this, but this does seem like something Marvel Studios would do. I do have one thing to add to it, but we'll get to that, and you'll have to let me know your thoughts on it. But according to the report, that is the opening scene. The worlds of Deadpool, Wolverine, and Maguire Spider-Man beginning to collide due to a multiverse incursion, but they'll be saved. By who? The TVA. I've been talking about this for a while. Actually, I want to bring it back to Deadpool and Wolverine because multiple insiders originally reported that for Deadpool Wolverine, the original plot was that Deadpool and Wolverine would be working with the TVA and the multiverse would be collapsing. Worlds were going to start colliding, universes were going to start to be destroyed, and Deadpool and Wolverine with the TVA, with their tech and everything, were going to go throughout the multiverse and save very key figures in the multiverse in hopes that they could all fight together and eventually defeat the threat, which we now know is Doctor Doom, and ultimately hope to restore the multiverse. Now, that obviously did not happen in Deadpool and Wolverine, but it looks like Marvel might have just said, hey, you know what? Let's kind of save that plot for the Avengers film because that's actually a pretty good plot. I actually really like that. And I think it makes a lot of sense, especially after Deadpool and Wolverine really went into the importance of anchor beams. And not only that, but Deadpool's universe was dying. And due to the events of Deadpool and Wolverine, at the end, it wasn't. It had been restored. That has to come into play in some way, shape, or form at the end of Secret Wars, where they're trying to restore the multiverse. And I think anchor beams could be a key there. Certain things that you do around anchor beams and possibly making new anchor beams, I think will be a really important factor of Secret Wars. But the opening scene starting with Deadpool, Wolverine, and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I think would be absolutely epic. The only thing, like I said, that I would add is for the opening scene, I think they would have to add something about Doom, right? So you see their worlds colliding, the TVA saves them, and then all of a sudden, Maguire, Deadpool, Wolverine, they're like, how is this happening? What is going on? Why is this all collapsing? Who can save us? You could go two ways with this. You could either say, well, this Doom guy could save us, because remember, he's going to portray himself as a hero in the beginning, right? Or, well, it's Doom. Doom is causing the collapse of the multiverse. And there's this guy going around killing anchor beams or trying to kill anchor beams, and he's trying to kill people who caused incursions. They could go that way as well. But we did hear a recent report that for let's say maybe the first, 40% of the movie, 40 to 50%, half of the movie, Doom is going to act like he is a hero and act like he's on everyone's side. We'll have to see if that comes true, but it does kind of check out based on some other things that we've heard. And Doom is very clever and cunning, and he's a genius. Remember, he's a genius. He's not as smart as Reed Richards, if you're going by IQs of Marvel history and such, but he's up there. He is a genius, right? And that's what makes him so dangerous. He's a genius, and he has sorcery, and he has tech, right? So very powerful villain, obviously. Debatably the strongest or maybe the most popular, I think, for Marvel comics ever. So excited for him to come and Robert Downey Jr. to play him, but I do think there's going to be sort of a deceitfulness to him where he does try to act like he is a hero and he is trying to help everybody until eventually he reveals that he's actually been going around trying to kill people who have caused incursions, and that's the only reason he tried to get close with the Avengers, to try to get close to somebody else who has caused incursions, or to try to basically infiltrate them from the inside and get rid of them because they're standing in his way. And I do hope this connects to King the Conqueror in some way, shape, or form. We haven't heard anything about that in a while, but I do hope that happens. But starting the movie off with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and Deadpool, and putting them together in the same place, just seeing Hugh and Tobey next to each other, that would be pretty dang good. That'd be a pretty great way to start the movie, seeing Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman on screen together at the TVA. That would be pretty dope. But go ahead, let me know your thoughts about that in the comments down below. And like I said, I do think they would have to showcase Doom in some way, shape, or form in the beginning before the logo shows, right? Before they roll that. Because in Infinity War, you had Thanos beat the crap out of the Hulk, and he killed Loki and all this. Like, it was pretty big demonstration of his power. Now, the demonstration here would be there's a lot at stake here. The multiverse could be completely destroyed, which we do believe it could be destroyed, and the threat is Doom. So I think they could really make this work. But let me know your thoughts about that. Now, like I said, we have been seeing some leaked photos for people, and one of the biggest things, two big things I want to talk about, is Dr. Doom. In some of these leaked photos, he has a sword and a shield, which I think is freaking awesome. Combine that with a castle, and I think just the aesthetic of that and his medieval armor that we've already seen, that's going to be pretty dang cool. Another thing with Doom is we've seen him kind of looking over a chessboard, and we've heard actually from an insider report that the Avengers and the Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four, they're going to kind of be chess pieces. And basically he's kind of like, that's a strategy board right there. And I think that'll be super, super cool as well, because Doom is very strategic. And then at the same time, lots of pictures of Chris Evans returning. He's wielding Mjolnir, which is one thing, which is really cool. I mean, obviously I wouldn't expect Captain America to have done anything throughout this entire time to make him not worthy of Mjolnir. It's Steve Rogers, right? It's Steve Rogers, even though he stayed back in time, and that's a debate whether he had the right to, or whether he should have stayed and been a superhero because that's his duty and his obligation. That's a whole different topic. Despite all of that, he is still worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, it seems, and he is wearing all dark clothes. Dark jeans, dark shirt, dark jacket. He's got longer hair. This does kind of look like it's going to be kind of a play on Nomad, which is what we've been talking about for a while. There was supposed to be a Nomad show that showed him returning the stones and kind of those adventures. We never got that. Maybe this is Marvel Studios' way of kind of throwing that storyline into this, which does make sense because we're going to have to learn a lot about kind of what happened with Steve Rogers after Avengers Doomsday, after Avengers Endgame. I mix those up all the time. But that's what Avengers Doomsday is going to show us. What happened after Endgame, and the Russo brothers have already said, this is a direct sequel to Endgame. And that's just one of the reasons they are re-releasing Avengers Endgame in theaters. Another reason would obviously be so they can try to retake that #1 spot from Avatar. Hopefully they can do it. I'm a Marvel fan. What can I say? Hopefully they can reclaim that spot. And then when you do the promotions for Doomsday, they say, from the studio that brought you the #1 movie in the world, from the directors that brought you the #1 movie in the world, from the writer that brought you the #1 movie in the world. I think that would be really cool and great marketing. But moving on to the next one, this one's really interesting. According to Caleb Williams at Night Gambit, he states a small tidbit. As of right now, Jean Grey, Storm, Captain Marvel, and Monica Rambeau, even though she's on the X-Men Earth, are not in Avengers Doomsday, but the April reshoots are specifically for actors they couldn't get during filming last year. So 3 of these. This I actually understand because scheduling has to be so hard. I mean, you think about how hard it must have been for Infinity War and Endgame, and then you have this movie that's bigger. And then Secret Wars is coming. That's going to be even bigger. But you think about that, and yeah, scheduling has to be a nightmare because these are all, for the most part, all of these people are pretty good, pretty big actors like Halle Berry, Famke Janssen, Brie Larson. Like these are all really big actors. So getting everybody together at the same time, I mean, look at the fact Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., like it's gotta be a nightmare. So this makes sense to me. The only thing I will add to this is it wouldn't really make any sense in Avengers Doomsday if Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau weren't in the movie. Like they have to be in the movie. It just really continuity wise would not make that much sense, especially with the Marvel's post credit scene. That was a big setup for Avengers Doomsday. Or Kang Dynasty at the time, right? But the result is the same. The incursions are happening. Our universes are colliding. We're going to their universe. They're coming to our universe. The result is the same, but that was really set up with that X-Men post-credit scene for the Marvels where we saw Beast, we saw Binary, he mentioned Professor Xavier. That's probably the universe that we are getting in that X-Men trailer that's in theaters right now, probably if everything stays the same, that is coming to YouTube on Tuesday. So if Monica Rambeau and Captain Marvel aren't in this movie, it's not that it's required, but that's a big continuity gap. They'd have to explain that some way, but I would just be absolutely shocked if they weren't in this movie. Jean Grey and Storm, I want them to be in the movie more than Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau, if I'm being honest. Not that I don't like those characters, because I actually do. But I love Jean Grey and Storm, specifically from the original X-Men, Famke Janssen and Halle Berry. I want them to return because I am most excited about the X-Men. And I fear if they don't return, they might say like, they died. Clearly something huge is happening with that X-Men trailer for Doomsday that we saw. Cyclops is in the midst of rubble, a Sentinel in the background. He takes off his visor, shoots the optic blast. I mean, a lot's going down. That could be a flashback to when Sentinels attacked originally and they lost some people. So if they can't get Famke Janssen and Halle Berry back to film for Jean and Storm, I fear they might just say that they died in that. And I don't want that. I want them back on screen. But again, I'm excited for Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau as well, especially with the story they set up. I think they really should have that in the movie. Again, they could explain their way around it, but I think it should be in the movie. But this makes a ton of sense because, yeah, scheduling has to be just a complete nightmare in a movie that has just so many really big actors in it. And like none of the actors in this are small, right? Like they might not necessarily all be like gigantic actors like Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., but they're all still relatively big actors in it. So, from Robert Downey Jr. to the last person, we won't say who we would think the last person is out of respect, but they're all pretty big, which means their schedules are pretty busy, which means it had to be really hard. And we've even heard like Alan Cumming talk about, he was fighting people in his scene, but like he wasn't actually fighting another actor. They were, they had like stand-ins or like props and stuff like that. And that could be for secrecy, but that also could have been because of scheduling. Luckily now, the way CGI is and the way Marvel Studios has handled things in the past, it can be done still incredibly well if they take the time to do it, which they obviously are. Marvel knows this movie has to be just fantastic. So I'm excited for everything. I want these four to appear in the movie. These four women, Jean Grey, Storm, Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. I think they should. And there's a lot going on with Avengers Doomsday right now. So if you want to keep up to date with everything, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Please be sure to let us know your thoughts about all of this news in the comments down below. And you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.